Well, St. Louis Cardinals just finished a series victory over the Milwaukee Brewers this weekend, although game 3 was a little bit of a disaster class. And did that reveal some of the true weaknesses of this Cardinals team in both the immediate future and the long-term future in some ways as well? Kareem and I are going to talk about that on this episode of Dealing the Cards, as well as take some big picture lookouts of some of the guys they decided to hold on to this offseason, some of the young guys and how they're performing so far. We got a lot of topics to cover on this episode of Dealing the Cards. Hey, welcome back into Dealing the Cards. I'm Josh. This is Kareem. You know Kareem you're on frequent regular Dealing the Cards episodes, but you're obviously the host of Birds on the Farm on the channel as well. If you haven't checked that out before, I highly encourage it. Kareem is one of the best and most plugged in the prospect space. Him and Sandy host those weekly, and it's an awesome space to have some bigger picture conversations about the farm system and specific prospects, but also to keep up to date on how guys are performing down on the farm. And so Kareem, I'm excited to join you or have you join me today. Andrew and Sandy are both out, but we get to talk about this Brewers series. And I want to just start off, like, there's a lot of different routes we can go to. I know we're going to have the Erick Fedde conversation at some point. We can lead with that if you want to, but what's like your biggest takeaway or the biggest takeaway from this weekend series? Because they did beat the Milwaukee Brewers, which I know the Brewers aren't that good this year, but the Cardinals have had fits with them over the last few years.
Yeah, I know there's not a lot to be excited about if you're a Cardinals fan right now, but I mean, taking 2 out of 3 against a division rival. I know the Cardinals played at home. We're going to have some of that home road discussion later in this episode, but it's always good to win a series. And the way that Arenado was able to, hit that walk-off home run last night, that was pretty special. So, I mean, I think that one thing that's actually, positive that we can take away from this series, aside from the Churio game-tying home run against Helsley, I think the bullpen performed pretty well. I could be wrong. You can correct me if I'm wrong here, but I don't think they allowed a run besides that, Helsley home run against Churio.
I think you're right. I'll check on that. But yeah, Libby gave up both on Friday. And I think that the Helsley home run was the only runs given up the whole series by a reliever.
So yeah, that's obviously a positive. But yeah, hopefully we can keep this momentum alive, win another series, and just put some wins together. We're not too much below 500 right now, but obviously would like to see this team perform a little bit better.
Yeah, we'll circle back. We got plenty to talk about the Brewers series, but you set it up. Okay, they got to win in the next series. They could be hitting the great to stack some series wins. But of course, the Cardinals, for some reason, are allergic to winning games away from Busch Stadium this year, which is it's insane. What are they, 2-10 at this point away from Busch Stadium? I don't understand it. Is there anything that to me, I guess I'll reveal my cards to start. I think it's too early to say like they for sure just can't play on the road. I mean, in general, a lot of the stuff we're talking about, like, even though we don't say it every time, it's like, take some of this with a grain of salt, because this is, and we're talking about 162 game baseball season. And what are we, 20 something games into the year? Like this is a small portion of a season. So it's hard to really draw too much from it. But at the same time, they are just terrible on the road right now. And they're about to go play 4 games in Cincinnati against a division rival. Cincinnati's been playing better after a rough start to the year. They got Terry Francona in there. You obviously got like Ellie De La Cruz, a bunch of young bats and young arms. Are you at a point right now where you see the Cardinals go on the road and you're concerned because you think there's something wrong with their mojo on the road, or is it too early to have that as a for sure storyline?
I think it's too early. I feel like over the season, this should be something that normalizes. I think that it's too small of a sample to really make anything out of this, but it is obviously interesting when, they're going 10-5 at home and 2-11 on the road. I mean, that's pretty drastic, but yeah. I still think it's early in the year. I mean, they've only played so many series, and I think, some of the teams they've played on the road are, better teams than the ones that they've played on the home for the most part. So I think as the season goes on, that should be something that, those two numbers bridge the gap a bit. But yeah, definitely going to be watching to see it, because even this early in the season, it's just something interesting to look at, right?
Yeah, and like you said, small sample size. They played 15 games on the road, so I'm looking at that a little bit here. To me, I was just doing some brief splits real quick. They're like middle of the pack in baseball and OPS on the road, which is kind of weird because Busch Stadium is more of a pitcher friendly ballpark. So like you would think that if you were going to be a little bit more average somewhere, you'd be a little more average at home. I know you get the home boost though, but they have like an over 6 starter ERA on the road right now. So there's a couple ways you can look at. Well, first of all, again, I'm gonna stop saying it, but like it's small sample size. You have to look at it like that first. Second, to your point, they played a lot of tough teams on the road. So I mean, when you go face the Mets, who are the best team in baseball right now, at Citi Field, their offense is probably going to make you look a little silly. And then also, again, we talked about Busch being a pitcher-friendly ballpark. Sonny Gray last year was excellent at home, pretty bad on the road. I don't know what Fedde's home road splits are off the top of my head. There could be something to that of you've got a mediocre pitching staff, I think it's fair to say. And when you're at home, you're probably going to benefit a little bit from the confines of Busch Stadium. And when you go to Great American Small Park this week, I don't know. Not feeling so great about it. I think Sonny's going to pitch one of those games, and oh boy. And Michaelis should be pitching one of those games too. So this could be some high scoring games this week against Cincinnati. But I do want to talk a little bit about, again, Erick Fedde's a big point. And I think all four of us over here at Deal on the Cards offseason, I don't think any of us ever wavered from it. We're team trade Erick Fedde. And at least from my perspective, I was never saying Erick Fedde's a bad starter. You have some people out there being like, he should be DFA'd, move to AAA, really. It's like, no, like Erick Fedde's a fine starter. I think he could be a number 3, a good number 4 on a team. Last year, though, he just had an excellent year coming back from the KBO. And I think most of us looked at it and said, I don't know how sustainable this is. Could he be good in 2025? Sure, but I'm definitely not giving him a long-term extension next offseason. The Cardinals might, but I definitely wouldn't. So trade Erick Fedde while you can. I don't care if you need veteran starting pitching depth. You can go sign Jose Quintana, who you literally just matched up with this weekend. You can go get Kyle Gibson for $5 million, who's even cheaper than Erick Fedde. They could have gone creative, and they decided not to. They held on to Fedde. I'm pretty upset about it, and I'm not saying I'm not writing off Fedde and I feel like he can't come back. But what have you seen from him this year that like has led to a little bit of this regression? I think some of it was coming, but I think there are some clear things in his profile right now. He's just not doing as well as he was last year. And did the Cardinals miss the boat here, holding on to him?
Yeah, I don't think Fedde is executing as well in those 2 strike situations. Just taking a look at his strikeout rate, it's down significantly from last year. He's walking a lot more hitters as well. I mean, on the season in 32 2/3 innings, 17 strikeouts to 16 walks. That's not what you want to see. Some of the underlying data continues to, not look too great for Fedde, but just in terms of performance, like I think Fedde's been fine. I mean, 4 out of 6 starts this year, he's gone 6 innings and allowed two or less runs in those starts. So it's not like Fedde is performing at like an awful rate. I'm a little concerned about some of the underlying metrics, the peripherals. And I do think that some of that stuff is even regressing from last year when we were having this conversation that, Fedde is not going to be nearly as effective of a pitcher as he was in that 2024 season. So I don't know. Obviously don't like to see that. I know that in the off season, we talked a lot about the Cardinals potentially moving on from Erick Fedde. And I do believe that they should have heavily considered that. I don't know what the market was like for him. I don't think we could have expected the Cardinals to get a ton in return back, even with his contract, even with him pitching to a 3.3 ERA last year, because I mean, teams are privy to the underlying data. They know just about, let's not act like they don't know about his, xERA and some of his underlying data. The fact that, the strikeout rate was not going to be that high going forward, things like that. So to act as if Erick Fedde was going to get a haul in the offseason, I don't believe that to be the case, but I still do think it would have been worth to see and explore what you could get back for him. It didn't seem like the Cardinals were too motivated to move on from him, which was something I didn't like to see, obviously, in the offseason. And now that, some of the underlying data continues to regress the way it has, it's not great. I'm wishing the best for Erick Fedde. And like I said, I mean, the performance hasn't been bad. Let's not, aside from the 2 blow up starts that he's had, obviously today, I know that there might be some recency bias here just by the way that he pitched today, but he's been solid 4 out of 6 starts. And it's not like a Michaelis situation where he's not giving you 6 innings. It's been 6 innings, 2 or less runs. That's a productive pitcher. But I am still concerned about the underlying data. And I question, what you would even be able to get at the trade deadline for someone like Erick Fedde now.
For sure. I mean, I think obviously Mo's talked about all offseason. They wanted to be competitive this year. So that's got to be the number one factor that kept Fedde back of his mind, too. I'm sure they're thinking if this does go south, we flip him at the deadline. But the part that I was always frustrated by and concerned about is like, well, no matter how good the team is playing, there's for sure a world here where Erick Fedde looks worse than he did last year. And teams already see the underlying stuff. But you can maybe convince someone when you've got a 3.10 ERA like you did last year's deadline, or like a 3.20 on the year, something like that overall, that it's like, hey, this guy's $7.5 million and we get him for a full year. He's going to make starts. And even with a little regression, that's a valuable starter. You've got Yusei Kikuchi going out there getting 3 years, 20 million plus per year. You've got Montas, who's just injured all the time. And even when he's healthy, he's not been that good for the past few years. And he's getting to over like almost 20 million a year. Like, Fedde's, like to your point, he's not going to get a haul. So even when I was frustrated about not trading him, a comp I made a lot last offseason was in 2022, in middle of spring training, the Athletics traded Chris Bassett to the Mets in the final year of his deal. Very similar profiles. They're coming out very similar type of years. They're making about the same in arbitration. And the Mets got the 5th ranked prospect from the Mets back in JT Ginn, which, again, not a flashy guy, but he was at that time a decent prospect with potential of being a back end of the rotation starter long term and a throw in reliever as well. And it's like you talk about how potentially thin this farm system is right now. Sure, they need top end talent, but you need depth. And we've seen all these pitching injuries go down too. And it's like, could you have added another young arm, even if it's a little bit better than Sam Robersa? Like that stuff can help you in 2026, 2027. Erick Fedde, assuming they don't extend him, which please don't. I do not like that idea at all. Probably not going to be helping you beyond this year. And so why not make that move? I mean, sure, there's a world where he bounces back here and you could flip him at the deadline or give him a qualifying offer after the year, which I do think there's a world where that happens because you look at the starting pitching market and how crazy it's gotten. I don't like it, but teams will pay for starters like that sometimes. But it just seems like they missed the boat there making the deal. To your point about some of the underlying stats here, this was going into today's start, so I'm sure it's all worse at this point. He was just striking out about 12% of the batters he faced this year, which is pretty awful. He's never been a strikeout guy, but that's bad for Erick Fedde. 25th percentile chase rate, 14th percentile whiff percentage. He was walking almost 4.5 batters per 9 innings, which you cannot do that when you're Erick Fedde. That's one of the things he did well last year, was limiting the walks, and he was allowing all these runs in some of these bad games, or even he had a no-hitter against the Pirates going all that, but on the season he has a 1.83 BABIP allowed. And so it's like all the stuff's telling you it's not good, and then the hitters results right now that he's getting lucky in terms of some of the batted ball luck too. It all just kind of screamed to me this could spiral quickly if he doesn't figure it out. Again, I don't expect him to give up 7 runs in every game going forward. I think we might be getting more of a 4 ERA guy this year than the low 3s, and I just think they should capitalize on it. We know the Guardians and the Tigers both reached out this offseason. According to Gould's reporting, he made it sound like the Cardinals were only willing to entertain offers if they were blown away, which it's like, sure, I mean, we all want to be blown away by an offer, but when you know you're sitting on something that could probably implode on you, I think I'd probably take good value rather than blown away value. That's just me. But do you have any confidence that Fedde can turn it around and be more like himself last year? Or do you think we're probably looking more of a regressed version, and this is just not a 7 runs a guy, but, or a game guy, but more of the Erick Fedde we've seen this year than we did last year?
Confidence in terms of like at least like a 4 ERA kind of guy.
Yeah.
I think he'll be somewhere in the 4s.
Encouraging.
I don't know if that's like 4, 5, but
Oof.
I mean, Erick Fedde's stuff isn't, he doesn't have the craziest stuff in the world. His sweeper isn't performing as well as what it did last year. And just based on, the pitcher that we saw last year, I think that he was more of a true, low 4s ERA kind of guy. And he's even regressed from, that point. Yeah. So, 4, 5, I don't know. I think we need to see a little bit more of how this season plays out for him. But I think he's closer to like being in the fours than someone that had a 3.3 ERA last year. That's for sure.
For sure. Well, we're going to thank a couple of our sponsors or podcasts real quick, and then I want to pivot the conversation to a different arm that's more of an exciting trajectory, and then we definitely want to talk about the offense and some of the maybe some big picture stuff that we're still seeing from this year so far. But as always, want to thank 314 Sports Cards and Collectibles. They've been partnering with us for a long time, and they're awesome. Many of you already checked them out already. They're located at 9640 All Boulevard in Olivet. They're open 10 to 5 Monday through Friday and 10 to 4 on Saturdays and Sundays. They buy, sell, and trade all sports cards and Pokemon cards. They have the newest selections of packs, boxes, and single cards of local players and stars from around the league. Got to go check them out. If you go in there, let them know we sent you. Again, many of you have already DM us on Twitter and show us the packs or the cards you've pulled or some stuff you've snagged from their case. They're awesome. Make sure you go tell Devin and his team that you came from Deal on the Cards, and make sure to go check them out. And I also want to tell you about Underdog Sports, one of our newer partners.
The Deal on the Cards podcast is proud to be partnered with Underdog Sports, our favorite place to play fantasy games. You're now eligible to play in Illinois, Missouri, Indiana, and 37 other U.S. states. You got to check out Pick'em. It's so easy to play. You just pick 2 to 8 stats of your favorite players and choose whether they'll go higher or lower. You can win 20 times your money by going 5 for 5. If that sounds like fun, sign up with our promo code CARDS to claim your first free pick plus first-time deposit offer up to $1,000 in bonus cash. We can't wait to see your entries.
Make sure you use that promo code CARDS. You can see on the screen now. You can download the Underdog app in the video description, or just go look it up on any app store that you have there. Again, if you use that promo code CARDS, you get a free time pick 'em plus a deposit offer of up to $1,000 in bonus cash. We can't wait to see your entries. Kareem, remind me, I want to come back to Bill put a good question here about how much we think Bloom potentially has had influence on this past offseason, but then I also want to think about start looking toward the deadline and how much I think his hands might be more involved than they were this past offseason. But something I just, again, anecdotally, we haven't had confirmation on it, but I got to think the Matthew Liberatore being firmly placed in the rotation, Bloom at least had some kind of influence on that. I don't think Ollie or Mo weren't able to come to that conclusion. But again, one of the things they've done a lot that's frustrated me this year. One of the things I was encouraged by, and I didn't know how it would work. I'm not going to act like I was team Matthew Liberatore is going to look really good if he gets in the rotation. I was team, hey, maybe you should give him a runway here because I'd rather see that than Steven Matz, even though Steven Matz look good, but like Liberatore can be a part of your future. And not the whole like, hey, you get 2 starts or go between the rotation and bullpen and see what happens. Because frankly, his opportunities at St. Louis has been being called up midseason as an injury replacement, where he's really on a time crunch, where it's like, dude, you got to pitch well or else you're going back down, or between the bullpen rotation. He's never really been told, hey, you're in the rotation to stay. They did that this year. He had some shaky starts to begin, even when the output looked pretty good, but he seems to have gotten confident and settled in a little more. He's talked about how this runway's given him the opportunity to work on some things and get himself right rather than kind of worrying about how is he going to be utilized the next time out. What have you seen from Liberatore so far that has had him just, again, frankly, it looks night and day, him in the rotation now than how it has in the past?
Yeah, I think he's just executing. I think that we've seen the development of some of his secondaries. He, throughout his minor league career, even, when he's gotten the opportunity in the major leagues prior to this year, Liberatore was never someone that could really grasp a changeup. I think we've really seen steps up in the development of, that pitch. The shape is a little bit sharper, but he's really just executing on that offering, throwing it 14% of the time, which is up like twice from, his previous season. So I think that that's something I'm looking at. Like the changeup has performed really well. I think he is definitely leaning on that slider more than, what I've seen in the past. Especially, backfooting that to right-handed hitters. I think that we've always questioned Liberatore's viability as a starter due to some of those struggles against right-handed hitters. And I think he's shown a ton of growth in that department so far this year. And, if he can continue this, to keep right-handed hitters at bay the way that we've seen this year, obviously with the rework changeup that, he has a ton more conviction in. The slider is playing really well, backfooting that pitch to right-handed hitters. And, the fastball, nothing really stands out in terms of shape difference from last year, but it is performing. I think he's just doing a better job at just executing. And we've seen that on the season. Liberatore has only walked two guys, I believe. You can correct me if I'm wrong on that. But yeah, 28 strikeouts to 2 walks on the season in 31 innings. So, I mean, that's a lot. There's a lot of positives to be had with that. When you're striking out guys and limiting walks, I think that's something you can build off. And Liberatore has done that, and he has been the most impressive pitcher in this Cardinals team so far this year. I know he's having a solid season, but I did not expect Liberatore to take this jump up. I was skeptical. The Cardinals are showing why they made that decision, and it's panning out so far. That's for sure.
Yeah, I'm looking at again, this is small sample size. Again, I'll say it again. But last year he was allowing a 700 slug on his fastball against right-handed hitters, 607 expected slug, 423 WOBA. Like right-handed hitters just went to town whenever Matthew Liberatore threw a fastball. This year, it's not good, but it's not terrible either. It's like a 352 WOBA, a 519 slug. Again, not good numbers here, but it's like it's not awful anymore. And that he's got to be able to figure that out. It's like Andre Palante before last year. This dude, and even now he doesn't do great against right-handed hitters, but man, he was like, I wrote something about it, and I love that I got to eat crow on it. I was like, the Cardinals need to stop this Andre Palante and the rotation crap, because literally the slash line of a right-handed hitter against Palante was Ted Williams for his career. Like, it's like when 70% of the hitters you face are like Ted Williams against you, that's not really viable in my opinion. But he found a way to flip it around, turn around. He ended up figuring things out. I was hopeful that Liberatore could be similar to Palante in that way this year. We give him a little bit of a chance here, maybe figure some things out. I don't know if you've noticed this, but it feels like he's not relying on the fastball as much this year, especially against righties. I feel like he's done a better job of going to the off-speed stuff and keeping him off balance a little bit, and knowing like you got to throw the fastball some, but you don't have to overdo it, especially when that's not your pitch. Looking at some run value stuff, like he's in the 90th percentile and pitching run value, off-speed run value, breaking stuff 83rd percentile, and his fastball is like slightly above average this year. And it feels like that's the kind of profile he's going to have to maintain if he's going to stay and a guy that can give you 6 innings. Obviously out of the bullpen, his stuff plays out more, and I'm excited because it's like if this rotation thing doesn't work out, I have no doubt that Liberatore can transition back into a short inning role and be a valuable reliever. But obviously the Cardinals need to start figuring out how to have some young pitching in this rotation that is productive. They got Palante as one of them. And again, I think we all can agree he's probably a back end of the rotation starter. We're not talking about a future ace there. I don't think either of us think Matthew Liberatore is a frontline starter in the making necessarily. But could he be a really valuable back end of the rotation starter? Maybe a 3, but even that, I feel like that bar gets lowered. And I feel like people act like being a 3 is easy to do. I don't know if I'm even say that. But if you can have Liberatore and Palante and McGreevy as 3 guys you can turn to that are young, cheap, under cost control, and get you innings, keep you in games, that's a big development for this team moving forward. And so I'm loving what we're seeing from Liberatore in the rotation so far. Is there anything that you've seen from him so far that you're like, I don't know if I fully trust that yet, or some like bad habits or things that are like, he's got to clean that up still if he's going to maintain things?
Yeah, I'm not sure if the fastball is going to perform at the level that it has so far. I think that there is some regression due in terms of that. But aside from that, like I do like a lot of what I've seen, like he's controlling the ball really well. I think that, as you said, he has limited the fastball usage this year, leaning more on that slider and changeup against righties. And yeah, I think with Liberatore, it's going to be a wait and see. I'm not 100% convinced that this is someone that's you could just lock it and throw the key away and book this guy as a starter long term. Like, I'm still a little bit skeptical, but I've been very encouraged, at least by what I've seen so far. And if he can keep this up, obviously not at a 3.19 ERA, I think that, I don't think we can expect him to, pitch at that level for the rest of the year. But even as someone that, is close to a 4 ERA type, right? I think that let's just wait and see how the rest of the season goes. I think he's pitched the way he's pitched so far. I think the Cardinals are going to keep him in the rotation for, a significant amount of time, maybe even, for the rest of the season. So I think we'll have a better idea of what to expect from Liberatore, just the more that we watch him. But I've been impressed. I think that, there's definitely the pathway to him being a productive starter in this league. Like you said, I don't know if we can even expect a 3 from him, but even a 4 or 5 is really valuable considering the Cardinals haven't been able to develop pitching. And when you pair him with someone like an Andre Palante, you look down at AAA, someone like Michael McGreevy hasn't been given that shot yet, but I like his odds of being a potential 5. I think there's a lot of cost-controlled starting pitchers that are in the pipeline right now, and that's something that the Cardinals haven't really had recently. So I think that's a positive. The Cardinals having some arms that, aren't going to be making upwards of, $10-15 million like a Lance Lynn or a Kyle Gibson. You have your in-house options to be at the back end of a rotation. I think that's very important for a team like the Cardinals, who aren't going to shell out a ton of money in free agency. We want to see some of those pitchers take steps up and, pitch at least at back end starter values. So yeah, I think that Liberatore, he's been awesome. Let's see what it looks like, the next couple months, end of the year. And I think we'll have a better idea of what to expect from him at that point. But for now, it's been awesome. And, every time he has a start, I'm definitely itching to watch him pitch, because he's been the most interesting and intriguing starting pitching option for this Cardinals team this year.
Yeah, and I want to turn our attention to the offense here in a second, and I think this will segue into it a little bit. But like, you look at, there's so many different things you could point to for the Cardinals over the last few years that have led to their downfall, their deterioration over organization, all that kind of stuff. At the major league level, the fact that they continuously run into issues where they don't have enough competent, and I mean by competent, I mean like guys that you could throw out there and it's not going to implode 9 times out of 10. Like, second half of 2023 was like Drew Rom and Jake Woodford and Dakota Hudson. It was just like, what are we doing? Like, but I mean, I know they've thrown in the towel at that point, but the reason, like, you see what their internal depth was at that point. How they masked that in the past was they'd go out and get Quintana and Lynn and Gibson and Jay Happ and Wade LeBlanc and all these guys. And it's like, you can't keep winning that way. The fact that, from an injury side of things, where you got to be able to weather the storm of your 5 guys you start with in camp are not going to stay healthy all year. I mean, we've seen at the minor league levels right now, the guys we're most excited about, Quinn Matthews, Tim Kentz, Cooper Jerpy, they're all on the mend right now. Like, you got to have more pitching than that. And hopefully Cooper obviously is out the whole year, and man, I hope he's going to be okay long term. Tank, a lot of injury issues. So like, just continues on the story there. Quinn Matthews, again, this is his first thing, but again, shoulder, not happy about that. So we're going to have to keep an eye on that. To have Liberatore, to have Palante, to have McGreevy, and I'm not saying these guys are bookend, like they'll be fine for the next 3 years, but to have a wealth of options, if you can start rattling off 10 different guys, you're not all 10 of them are going to work out, but you up the odds that you're going to have 3 or 4 of them work out. And if that happens, it's easier. I don't know if the Cardinals will do it, but it's easier to invest in higher risk, top end pitching talent and invest more money there when you know you don't have to backfill the back end of the rotation with 10 million, 15 million, 18 million here and there to cover innings. I do believe Mo when he says over the next few years he expects payroll to go back up. Again, I'm not saying go back up into the $200 million range, but do I think they get back into the 180s? Yeah, I think they do. And like an end of year payroll of 200, I think they do, because at some point if they start winning again, fans will be back in the seats. They want to get this thing running again. I don't think the DeWitts want this to turn into the Milwaukee Brewers or the Tampa Bay Rays. I'm sure they want to get more efficient with their spending, but guess what? They did that when they brought in Jeff Luhnow, and they found out a way to spend big on some guys, not all guys, and every be the Mets or the Yankees, but to be able to do it at a mid-market level. I think that's what they want to do under Bloom. Will it work out? We'll see. But when you have on the pitching side, or I want to turn our attention to the offense, where again, the record-wise as a team right now, it's not good. But the thing if you told me before the season that I could say one thing went well for this team, I would have to say if the young bats can look good, that's the one thing. I mean, okay, the young pitching depth is important, but at the major league level, the young bats performing is what I want to see, because these are the guys you're hitching your wagons to. And if the young bats aren't performing, they like, I know they're already kind of teetering rebuild-ish, and I think they don't want to say it, but it's probably gonna be longer than we'd hope. If the young bats weren't even hitting, then this is like you really got to tear it to the studs, because you have nothing to work with. You look at the team. We can talk about Jordan Walker, because he's his own other animal right now with how it looks, and it's not good. But you look at Brendan Donovan, you look at Ivan Herrera, you look at Lars Nootbaar. Thomas JC, small sample size, but he's looking pretty decent. Victor Scott, for the kind of hitter you thought he could be, I think he's hitting way better than what anyone thought he could do this year. Mason Wynn's heating up. Wilson Contreras, again, he's pseudo part of your future, kind of. He's heating up again. I like what we're seeing from this offense right now, and I think there's a couple of glaring holes long term that they need to figure out when it comes to power and hitting lefties. We can talk about that. But it's a lot easier to add to those weaknesses and to address those with some bigger contracts, because they have paid Arenado, they have paid Goldschmidt, they have paid big money before. They're not totally immune to that. You can do that though when your lineup is full of guys on pre-arb and early arb contracts. What are you seeing from the offense so far? And are you like optimistic about how the young bats as a whole looks like so far? Or again, are you maybe wanting to pump your brakes a little bit?
I'm going to pump the brakes a little bit.
No, Kareem.
Look, as a whole,
they're the 2004 Cardinals, right? No, I'm just kidding.
No. As a whole, though, this offense has produced. Since Ivan Herrera was placed on the IL, I don't think they've performed at that clip. It has definitely dragged down a bit. And when you lose arguably your best hitter, I mean, Herrera in 7 games had 4 home runs, had a 301 WRC plus. Was looking like potentially the best offensive threat in this lineup. But, Brendan Donovan has been, incredible. You talk about a guy that's just constantly on the sweet spot. He might challenge a, hitting title the way it's looking like so far this year, which has been awesome. So JC, as you talked about, 156 WRC plus on the year. It's only a 40 plate appearance sample, but I do like what I've seen. I think, he's showing the power. He hasn't been, taking his walks, which, so JC, he's always been an aggressive hitter. I don't think we can expect that from him, but he looks comfortable at the plate. And I'd like to see him get more of an opportunity. It feels like he isn't, in the lineup as much as he should be, the past few games. But yeah, I mean, as a whole, Nootbaar has had a great year. But I expected this out of Nootbaar. I know that, there are a lot of Cardinals fans on the Nootbaar is overrated train, but I just don't see that. This is someone that's walks at such a high clip. The power might not be exactly what you want. You probably want him to hit for a little bit more power, considering how hard he hits the ball and all that. But he's a productive big leaguer. I think he's someone that you could always book in to be a 120 plus WRC plus guy. And that's what he is right now. 136 entering today. Arenado has had a positive year. I think the power production is, taking a step in the right direction after a down 2024 season. We're seeing the bat speed up. I think that, it's always nice when Arenado pulls a fly ball. And, last night when he was able to do that for the walk-off home run, that was fun. And, he's been a 125 WRC plus guy so far this year with plus defense. And then talking about some of the younger guys, Victor Scott II, I think that anything over an 80 WRC plus from him, I think is a positive. I have been encouraged by what I've seen. I think that there's probably going to be some regression in there. He's been close to league average right now. I think that we can expect closer to that 80, 85 range for him. But assuming that he can be that at a consistent level with the defense he provides at a premium position, I think you're getting at least an average regular when you factor in how much of a threat this guy is on the base paths. Plus, not only in terms of stealing bases. I don't think he's been caught stealing yet. Nope. 9 for 9, I believe. And it's not just the, stolen bases. This is someone that's a really effective base runner whenever he gets the chance to, do that. But so Scott, I think that he's been more impressive offensively than I thought he would be, but still some regression is due, I would say. And then Mason Wynn, I think after a really slow start, he's been doing a better job getting back into that line drive stroke that we saw last year. And he's been, before today, 93 WRC plus, so a little bit below average, but much like Victor Scott, with the defense that he provides, with the base running that he provides, I think you're going to get an above average regular like we saw last year. Nolan Gorman entering today had a 90 WRC plus, so a little bit below average for him. But I do think that, some of the quality of contact has been there. I think that he's not whiffing as much as what we had seen last year. The strikeout rate is down. So, I mean, that is what you want to see out of Nolan Gorman. I think that the numbers could trend back into that 100 to 115 WRC plus range if he can keep this up. And he's the strikeout rate is down. Like I said, it's not in that, 35 plus range that we had seen last year. That's just not, you can't have your strikeout rate be at that level and really be a productive hitter. So that's been a positive. Alec Burleson, no sort of power production with him. It feels like when he hits the ball in the air, it's always hit at someone, no sort of damage there, which you want to see more damage out of Alec Burleson, but he's still someone that's scrappy, makes contact, and valuable as a bench piece for sure. But want to see a little bit more from him. Contreras, 67 before today. But I think we can continue to see that trend up the way that, he's taking at bats. I think Contreras had one of the worst starts to a season that I've seen for a Cardinal in recent memory, but I think he's starting to put it together, and his body of work that he's had over the past few years. I think that if there's someone that I'm betting on to get back into being an above average offensive player, it's him. And then we can talk about Jordan Walker. It hasn't been great for him. Walker is someone that whiffs at an above average rate. And when you're not getting any sort of power production, it's a sub 100 ISO on the season, despite the bat speed. Like Walker is not hitting the ball at optimal angles. It's just the truth. And I know a lot of fans, a lot of people watching this might not want to hear about the launch angle talk, this, that, and the third, but at the end of the day, he's got to hit the ball at optimal angles to be a productive player, and he's not doing that right now. So, I was rambling. I feel like I talked a lot there, but that's just a rundown of pretty much everyone. I know I missed a few names there, but yeah, for the most part, that's how I'm feeling.
That's great. I want to, and no, you were not, like, it was great. So more of that, please. We should definitely talk more Walker, because I think when you think about their struggles against left-handed pitching, it's like, man, you got to start getting some right-handed bats producing. I mean, not that your left-handers can do that, but that is one of the things when you're a predominantly left-handed team from your top hitters is you're probably going to struggle against those southpaws, and that's what we've seen for the second straight year now. Actually, third straight year, honestly. 2023 was a problem there too. And Walker, Contreras, Yvonne have to be some of those guys that help you get out of that. Luke and Baker, if he's going to be on this team, Thomas DeJacy. And again, Walker's development long-term is they're true, like outside of Yvonne Herrera, one of their only right-handed options. That's a young core member. And anyway, it's bad right now. A couple things that I want to kind of piggyback back off what you're talking about there. I was looking at, because you're right, over the last, I went back last 15 days. The offense has not been the same. It's been about middle of the pack and a lot of stuff, but also you look at the run of pitchers they've went against too, and you got to hit good pitching in this league. But again, they face Skeens, Mitch Keller, Aaron Nola, Zach Wheeler, Framber Valdez, Hunter Brown, Blanco, Griffin Canyon, Peterson, Kodai Senga, Clay Holmes, Spencer Schwallenbach. Again, the Brewers pitching this year, not the same as usual, but it's still the Brewers. I'm impressed that they did not just totally crater. They had some good games against good pitching. Is there room for improvement? Yes, but again, we talked about Yvonne Herrera's not in the lineup right now, and I don't think either of us expected this team to be a top 5, even a top 10 offense in baseball this year. So I'm taking this as all positives and moving in the right direction for a young lineup. Long term, do they probably need more pieces? Yeah, probably, because this probably is not your again, I don't know if this core is going to be touching a World Series, but like, even if you want to go down that path, you're probably not going to do whoever's on the team right now is probably not doing it. You probably need some additions to that. But do you have a good base around it to add a big bat to the middle of your lineup? And then you're not relying on Donovan and Nootbaar and Contreras to be your primary producers. They are the supplemental bats. That's how you stack a good lineup. You can't have that be the core of it to be an elite lineup. We all get that. So I do think that's something that I want to hang my hat on for them a little bit here, is that I think they've got the pieces around to do it. There's also some comments in here about Ivan Herrera's sample size. How much can we like believe in it? Which is a fair, right? It's a small sample size to start the year. I don't think either of us think he's a 300 WRC plus guy. I mean, maybe Kareem does. I don't think he does though. But again, the Cardinals he's had some injuries. So like, that's fair. Some of it's been his own fault, but like, they haven't really played him a lot the last few years, which has been frustrating. We've wanted to see more Ivan Herrera. In his career right now, he's a 130 WRC plus hitter at the major league level. Now, he's only gotten 350 plate appearances. So like, that's still not a huge sample size. I think it's pretty clear at this point, though, that we think Ivan Herrera is a bat. Are we saying he's an MVP level bat? No. Are we saying he's an all-star level bat? Maybe, but I'm not going to say it yet. Do I think he's a potentially a well above league average bat? I think so. And could he be one of these bats you want in the middle of your lineup? I think so far I'm seeing positive signs to go that direction. But yeah, of course we need to see more. And we still need to see more from Gorman and Walker and to an extent Nootbaar. I think we know what Donovan is at this point. I'd argue we know what Nootbaar is, but some people want to see more. We need to see more from Wynn. It's been 1 year. Like all these guys need sample size. But I'm just encouraged by the different options right now. And we're not like totally hitching our wagons to like, oh, this guy has to be it or else at all. Like, even if Walker right now doesn't turn into anything, guess what? This lineup's producing without him. So I think he's a part of potentially the solution of it getting better long term or sustaining the kind of success. But if he can't, then I don't know. Maybe there is a world where Walker isn't part of your future and Donnie's back in the outfield and JJ goes to the infield. Like it's all on the table at this point. But I do think, how concerned are you? One, left-handed pitching side of things, because this is a 3-year trend now where the Cardinals used to be elite at hitting lefties. They couldn't hit righties. It's basically flipped. They're good against righties. They cannot hit lefties for a lick. And then the power, again, like you look at the lineup and it's like Contreras is a power bat, but he hasn't been hitting like it this year. I think Herrera is a power bat. Newt's got power, but he's not a power bat. Donnie can run into some, but he's not a power bat, right? Like they got a lot of on-base average guys, which I'm not complaining. Love that. But you do need slug to win. How concerned are you about some of the lack of slug? Do you see any coming? To me, it feels like some of them might have to outsource under Bloom at some point. And then the left-handed side of things. Like, do you think optimally you look at this lineup, bunch of lefties, are they going to be able to figure this out? Is this kind of the Achilles heel of this lineup moving forward?
Yeah, I think the Cardinals, not only at the major league level, but even at the minor league level, they've got an abundance of left-handed hitters.
Yeah.
And that's not to say all left-handed hitters can't hit left-handed pitching. Like JJ Weatherholt, for example, I mean, he's someone that's professional hitter against both righties and lefties, but typically, I mean, lefties struggle against left-handed pitchers, right?
Yeah.
So I think there is some of that.
And Newt historically has been good against lefties, 800 OPS this year. I think his career, he's actually slightly better against lefties, like WRC plus wise. So Donnie can handle his own 771. So it's not bad, it's just not great.
Not great, yeah. And I mean, we talked about this, but not having Ivan Herrera in the lineup, I don't think Lucan Baker has produced the way that, I thought, he would, frankly. I know that he's still been an above average hitter against left-handed pitching, but you're not seeing the slug. I think it's a sub 100 ISO against lefties, which for Baker, I mean, you want to see more slug, but I mean, the sample still isn't at the point where I think that we should make too big of a deal. Like, I still think he's holding his own against lefties, but obviously want to see more slug out of a, lefty hitting thumper like Lucan Baker is. So yeah, I mean, long term, I think that there are going to be some questions. I mean, our left-handed hitters are going to have to perform against left-handed pitching for us to have some, success in that category. And, as you mentioned, I mean, Nootbaar is good against lefties, Donnie, but if they're not performing against lefties, in a given season, I think that could bring, your overall production in those situations down. So yeah, I think there's definitely a need for a big right-handed bat. I know that Nolan Arenado is performing better this year, but aside from him and even Herrera, I think they could use like a true right-handed hitter that just mashes left-handed pitching, and I don't think they have that right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think you to an extent could say Contreras is kind of supposed to be that, and so like as he's heating up, that helps. But even then, you can't just have like a really good lineup. You can't just have one guy like that. You really need your 2 through 5 needs to be pretty strong. And I think you can argue that like a Donnie could be a part of that mix or New, but you really outside of that, you probably need another right-handed bat in there long term to replace that Arenado money. I'd say like so it doesn't have to be a third baseman, but when you look at their payroll right now, it's just under 150 million. That's with Arenado on the books. It's really confusing how much they actually pay Arenado, so it's not as simple as just saying they're going to get 32 million off the books. But you look at long term, it's like again they have top end problems on pitching and hitting right now, and that's not a great place to play because that's both are going to be very expensive to replace. But again, you're starting to see some depth in the lineup, and hopefully you're developing depth starting pitching wise where. Again, you did get rid of Goldie's money. You're going to have Gray's money coming off the books soon too, which is a pretty penny, 25 mil this year, 35 mil next year. Arenado, whether they trade him, eat some, whatever, that's going to be some savings. You got Michaels coming out the books. They've got money to play with and move. I would not anticipate 2026 being the year they do that. But again, you come out of next year feeling pretty good and knowing what your strengths and weaknesses are. Maybe they attack the offseason class following that or the next one. Again, I'm not saying like, go and sign a $600 million deal. I'd be shocked if the Cardinals ever did something like that. Or do they maybe even go back down that route if they try and trade and extend to someone? I don't know. It's way too far, and it's not worth having that conversation. But I do think it's like, okay, you got to have the other pieces in place to be aggressive like that when you're not going to spend big because you got to nail it when you do. They're not the Mets where they can offload Justin Verlander, Max Scherzer, do a 1-year reset, and they're fine. They're never going to do that. If they miss on a big contract, they're screwed. Unless they decide to start spending differently. So they got to have these other pieces in place to start figuring stuff like that out. I mean, there's a variety of directions we can keep going in, but is there anything major league wise or minor league wise you're seeing right now that you want to touch on before we stop today?
I don't have anything off the top of my head to talk about really. At the minor league level, it's, past few weeks, it hasn't been awfully, there hasn't been a lot that's going on too much. And, with JJ Weatherholt's stomach flu that he had, wasn't able to watch him until today. So, I mean, do you have anything else you'd like to touch on?
I just think it's fun that Takeo Roby looks good this year so far. I mean, it's coming off a strong spring training. He's a guy that was it's not like out of nowhere. It's like, oh, this Takeo Roby guy might be able to pitch. It's like when they acquired him from Texas, he was a guy that you look at, if you go back and look in 2023 at what the Rangers guys were saying at that deadline, it's like, hey, we don't think Texas would have traded this guy if he didn't have a shoulder issue going on. Like they loved him, they would have kept him, but they're trying to push for a World Series, and he does have a shoulder injury, and you gotta pay something to go get something. So they parted with him. He was the piece of that deal, not JC. It was Roby was the bigger piece. Obviously, he struggled with injuries since he come to St. Louis. When he's been on the mound, it hasn't looked great the last few years. But this year, I'm not trying to act like he's Paul Skeens here. We're not playing that game, but like. I really like what we're seeing so far. Do you think he maybe could go up to Memphis soon? And like in general, what are you seeing from Takeo so far?
I think Takeo, his fastball looks night and day different from what I had seen last year. And, as explosive as a fastball as, a lot of Cardinals fans think, the pitch got touched up a bit last year. A lot of damage against that offering, especially against right-handed hitters. The home run rates were not great. Were not where you needed them to be. And so far this year, it was backed up by some of the spring data that we had, a little bit more life on that pitch, executing more in the top third of the strike zone. Velocity is still, around 96 miles an hour, which is a plus. And yeah, I think the fastball, that's the biggest thing I'm seeing. I think the rest of the arsenal, the slider, I still want to see a little bit more development in terms of just him being comfortable with that pitch and 2 strike counts against right-handed hitters. I think the curveball remains to be a plus pitch. Much like the slider, I think the changeup's an offering he can find a little bit more feel against lefties. But overall, I mean, he's performed as good as what we've seen of him in the Cardinals organization, which is great. To answer that second question about him potentially, being sent over to Memphis, I mean, Memphis has no starting pitching depth right now. It's kind of sad. So, I mean, could they use an arm like that? But I don't know. I think I want to see a little bit more from Roby at the AA level. But is there something to be said about not wasting bullets for a guy that's dealt with some shoulder stuff? You want to see him get to that next level. If he's performing, why not, test it early? I don't know. I think there's still some development I could see, as I talked about with the secondary offerings. And yeah, it's been fun to watch so far. Roby has the potential to be, at that upper echelon of a Cardinals pitching prospect. I moved him down a little bit after last year. I don't think he performed the way that he did, in 2023. And, with some of the shoulder stuff, I feel like Roby has a lot of reliever risk, right? And I just moved him down because of some of that stuff. Having the shoulder that he dealt with, the performance not being there, the fastball, giving up a lot of damage in 2024. But so far this year, it's been positives. And as long as he can stay healthy, I mean, we're talking about a starting pitcher mix with, the 4 offerings that he has. And, the fastball being solid enough to work as a starter, as long as he can keep that vert the way that he has so far this year, the way it was in spring training. So yeah, that's just how I feel about Roby. I do think that this is someone that has been one of the more impressive starting pitching prospects in the organization, but it feels like every starting pitching prospect in the organization is hurt. So, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, for real. Well, we got some roster news. Jose Barrero is on his way to St. Louis right now. The corresponding move has not been announced. My little is it Luke and Baker? Because maybe they sent Thomas to JC, but I'm like, man, I think you keep him up right now. But maybe
you talk about.
Oh, go ahead.
You talk about a guy that's just smoking the ball right now down at Memphis. A lot of hard hit, exit velocities. Barrero has been fun to watch, in this past week or so. So, I'm not saying this guy's anything more than a 4A kind of player. I mean, when he's gotten to that major league level, he hasn't performed, but you obviously have a lot more versatility with a guy like Barrero who has that infield, outfield versatility. You can play him at short, you can play him at center field. I think that there is a spot on the team for someone like that. Not sure how much he's going to play, but as a reserve player, that's going to give you versatility. I do think Barrero, has a spot with this team for sure.
Yeah, I'll be very curious to see. I mean, it's got to be Sajacy or Baker. I doubt it's anyone else. I know Sajacy, it's cool. It's definitely cooled down the last, he's only played 2 times the last 7 days. So maybe that's why they're sending him down, because they haven't really played him. If it's him and he hasn't gotten a hit in those games, but I'd still like to see Sajacy get more of a run. But at the same time, I don't know, Baker hasn't been bad. So I don't know if it's fair to give up on that yet, but I'm fine with them. I'm fine with it if they send down JC because he's not playing a lot. But at the same time, it's been fun to have him in the lineup.
Who do we think? What do we think the roster move is going to be? Because he's not on the 40-man roster, right?
Oh, I bet Michael Hellman or something like that.
Yeah, I could see that.
I'm trying to think if there's another, because I would assume they do position player for position player here. I don't know.
I think Hellman would make sense.
I'm trying to think if there's anyone else. I don't think position player wise on the 40-man. I think unless you did something with Jose for me, but I doubt that. I feel like everyone else is pretty safe. But you could, could this be the Ludus time? Probably not. I don't know. Maybe someone gets moved to I think everyone who's on the IL,
Jose Fermin. I think they keep him, but
I think they keep him too. I bet it's Hellman, but
yeah, Hellman makes the most sense. out of the 40-man.
Very interesting. We'll see what happens with that. Fun for Jose Barrero. Welcome back to the major leagues. Again, he's got some prospect pedigree long term. Oh, back in the day with Cincinnati Reds. So who knows? Maybe he does have a career revival here, but not going to bank on that. I do one other question, just because I said I told Samuel I'd ask you before we head out today, but he wanted to know what you thought about with the relievers in the bullpen right now. And I'll say twofold. One, how many of them do you actually trust? Because Ollie gets a lot of flack for how he uses the relievers, and the Helsley not pitching outside of safe situations. I think it's fair to debate, but also, if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty darn sure it's been reported since last year that both him and the Cardinals came to like a mutual decision that they will only put him in save opportunities, and part of that's because Helsley's had the lack of saves used against him in arbitration, and he's coming up in free agency this year, and so he wants paid, so he's going to do whatever he can to get paid, and I don't blame him. So I don't know if they, it feels more, you're not quite Josh Hader saying I will not pitch in back-to-backs and I will not pitch in non-save situations, but it kind of feels like it's kind of like that. But anyways, aside from that tangent, like how many of them do you actually trust right now to bring to a game where you're like, this will go well? And then how many of them do you think can go multi-innings? Because I do think some people get frustrated by, and I don't know how frustrated I am, but I think it's fair sometimes where it's like, man, could they have pushed that guy one more inning? Instead of bringing out 4 different guys to get from the 6th to the 9th. So yeah, twofold question there. How many guys do you trust in multi-inning spurts? And obviously some of that's depending on how many pitches they can throw that day, because just because you're available doesn't mean you're available for 2 innings. And anyways, and then how many of them do you trust in general?
In general, I think I only trust 3 guys right now. Yep. And I know Helsley gave up that 2-run home run. He's not having the start to the season that we thought he would have. It has been a little bit of a down year for Ryan Helsley, but he's still got some of the more premier stuff in the league. Not worried about him in the slightest. So I think that's one that I certainly trust. Phil Maton, what a signing. He has been very productive so far. Yeah. And I do think that he's going to continue to, be productive for this team. The velocity is up. He's striking out a ton of guys. And Maton early this season, I mean, he's been, I would say, the most dependable reliever from a appearance to appearance standpoint. And then the third guy, Kyle Leahy, but I think this is subject to change. I think the top 2 guys, a Helsley and a Maton, I have a lot of confidence in those guys at least being capable of pitching in high leverage. I think Leahy has shown that he can be that, but I think that relievers are really finicky. I feel like next week we can talk about how Kyle Leahy had a blow up and we don't trust him in these situations anymore. So I think it's 2 that I really trust. Like I think Maton and Helsley are going to have good years. And then right now, I think Leahy has been that third guy, third option in the bullpen that is starting to get high leverage situations. And I would trust him until, he's proving to me that he can't. And I do think that he has the stuff to be a back end kind of guy. It's just about him putting together the results, and he has so far this year. So, aside from those 3, it's been, you want to talk about multi-inning guys, Steven Matz, obviously, and he's been productive this year, but I'm not sure if I trust Steven Matz pitching high leverage. Like if it's a 1-run game in the 7th inning, do I want Steven Matz in there? Maybe over some of the other options,
over some of the others, but
overall, like I don't know if he's there to be like a high leverage kind of pitcher. But as a multi-inning guy, 5th, 6th inning, someone that's like I said, going to provide multi innings. I think that Matz has done that, and he's been effective so far this year in that role. Another guy, I mean, we just talked about him, but I think Kyle Leahy is someone that I would trust as a multi-inning guy, was a starter throughout his time in the minor leagues. And I do think that when we've seen him pitch multiple innings in his major league career, he's proven that he can handle it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think that's about it. I think those 2 in terms of multi-inning, and then overall right now, I would say Helsley, Maton, and Leahy.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think Matz is like the honorable 4th mention, but it's even hard to include him because it's like some days, like he's like, I don't know. I'm so confused how much they're going to run the 6-man thing. So like, if you want to keep him as an option, you have to utilize him. You can't just pigeonhole him into a 1 inning set. Even if you want him in high leverage, you can't make him a 7th or an 8th inning guy because he's got to get the reps in so that if you have to use him in longer stints, he's ready and available to do that. So it's just kind of a weird arm right there and there. I do like the fact that he can cover from the 5th, 6th, 7th type thing, or 6th, 7th, give you 2-3 innings at a time to cover some of that bullpen need when you need. I mean, I'm hopeful too. Like we just saw Chris Roycroft go down to Memphis, and it seems like he figured out the sinker again. Obviously, Ryan Fernandez just went down to AAA, and last year his slider was nasty. This year it's awful. And so, like, hopefully, maybe a stint in Memphis for a month or so can help him get a feel for that again. Who knows? Maybe Riley O'Brien can become one of those guys at some point. I think we've all kind of the ship has sailed on the idea that this bullpen is going to be like it was last year by any means, and most of us didn't expect that anyways. But even coming close to it, I don't know. I feel like it at this point, but I just feel for Ollie right now because when you have a bullpen of 7-8 guys and we can only name 3 we trust, it's going to be hard to navigate games when you live in this day and age when it's just a reality. Starters don't go as long, and you got to have a strong bullpen to cover those innings. And when you're innings eater, Miles Michaelis, you have to protect past the 5th inning, and you can't trust him to go into games. And Sonny Gray's always been kind of more of a 5-6 inning guy. I mean, Libby's giving you 6 every time, which is awesome. Palante can give you some innings sometimes, but sometimes he doesn't. Fedde today gave you innings, but it wasn't good. Like over time, that just compounds itself, and you get stuck in a situation where 2 of the guys you trust aren't available that day, and one of them's and then the other guy's your closer. So apparently you can't throw him till the 9th inning. So getting to the 9th is an adventure. But oh well, such is life in St. Louis these days. So we'll see what happens in the Cincinnati series. How are you feeling? Like, what's your early prediction? Jose Barrero in his revenge series. How many games do you think the Cardinals take out of 4?
Oh, 4-game series.
Yeah.
I mean, it's easy to just say 2-2. I mean, I'm not someone that loves predicting things. So yeah, I'll just go with the safe bet, 2-2.
Yeah, I mean, anytime we do these, I'm always kind of like, what number? I'm just like, just pick one. It's like that's what it feels like, and I'll say they split. Like, and I feel like I'm gonna say it's not gonna feel like a good split. I feel like and not that splits ever really feel that great, but sometimes you can end on higher notes like, oh, they split. I think it'll kind of feel like, oh boy, they split, but that was ugly. So we'll see. Hopefully I'm proven wrong. I'd love for a sweep in Cincinnati. But Kareem, thanks for jumping on, man. Appreciate you as always. And I know our listeners do as well. I know you guys probably have Birds on the Farm this week too. So again, if you haven't checked that out already, make sure to subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for that because they always do a great job over there. Now we got JJ playing back again after his long flu stint. So hopefully we got some more JJ chatter, maybe some Roby, all this stuff. There's plenty of stuff going on. I know that Josh Cross has been fun this year. So he feels like a name to follow. There's a lot of guys, and you Birds on the Farm does a great job with that. As always, like and subscribe helps the channel a ton. We appreciate you guys tuning in as always. We'll be back probably Thursday at the end of the Red series rather than midway through it. But we'll keep you guys updated. We'll see you guys next time.